Welcome to Ladakh. It is a land of mountains, of monks, and monasteries. The word La means passage, passes, mountain passes. And it has also been sometimes said to be a desert in the sky. So uh, La is just a mountain pass. So Ladakh is a land of passes. Now, I have never heard of the word Ladakh until I went over to Bangkok one day for a function. And one monk that I met told me that, we have students in Ladakh who sings your songs because I write songs. And I didn't know where Ladakh was. And when he says that it was the Himalayas, I was really amazed. And that monk was Venerable Nagasena, who happens to be the nephew of Venerable Sangasena. Okay, now, in Ladakh, it is actually located on the northwestern part of India. You see, Leh, which is the capital of Ladakh, is just north of Delhi, and the flight is about 1 hour 20 minutes. And Ladakh falls onto the leeward side of the Himalayas, so it doesn't receive very much rain. The Himalayas are in the south. In the north will be Karakoram, and it leads to Pakistan. Right? Ladakh also shares boundaries with China, and you know that recently there has been some border disputes between China and India, and we hope that the issue will be resolved. This is called the line of actual control. So it is this part. The Aksai Chin is the disputed border area claimed by India but administered by China. So they still have not resolved these border issues. The other part that which creates some kind of issues with India and China is Arunachal Pradesh, and that is on the eastern side. I hope that these border issues will be resolved very quickly, just as China and Russia have already resolved their border issues, so that doesn't become an issue these days. Now, let us go on to mountains first. One of the most amazing thing, if you get onto the flight from Delhi to Leh, and we like to get our flight early in the morning, you will actually begin to fly over the Himalayas. And so this is the scenery that you see. The glaciers on the mountain peaks. Is that amazing? And of course, one of the other amazing things is that when you descend in Leh, the airport itself is surrounded by mountains. So it is actually like descending. As you descend on the airport, it is like the plane have to go in circles to fly into a bowl. So you see the mountains just be in front of you, but then the plane goes just around. So it is actually quite amazing. Okay, here our host is Venerable Sangasena, and you know that he's wearing the robes. As Didi Jusing mentioned, he was a soldier before he became a monk. So he joined the Indian army at the age of 17, but he left the army to become a monk because of the spiritual calling. So he has left behind his weapons and instead have gone for compassion. He established what we call the Mahabodhi International Meditation Center in Leh, which is the capital of Ladakh. But for simplicity, let us use the word MIMC. That means Mahabodhi International Meditation Center. Now, this place, MIMC, is equipped with facilities to accommodate international guests. And because the air is much thinner, you're actually in the Himalayas, and the air, since the air is thinner, you really need to like come down when you come over when you land up in Ladakh. Maybe 1 or 2 days, really, take it slow, move very slowly, take a lot of time sleeping. You don't even take a bath, don't even wash your hair, because that will sometimes cause mountain sickness. All right. So the lady in front that you see, her name is Datin Sri King Min Yue. She's very talented in the arts, and she's actually in the 70s. So when she said that she wanted to go over to MIMC to Ladakh, her children were terrified with the idea. They thought there's something terrible going to happen to her. And but she still persisted, and she came over to Ladakh and was returned back. Nothing. Nothing went wrong. Yeah, because sometimes people think that in the mountains, strange things might happen to you. Now I showed this picture because these are the two boys from MIMC who came here to receive us. It was a delegation from MIMC to help us when we arrived at the airport. Now, when we say that Ladakh is in India, maybe you have some idea of how an Indian should look like. And these two faces do not strike you as very Indian looking, but actually, they are Indians. And in terms of genetic makeup, they have the Burmese, Tibetan, genes. So that's how they look. And when you come to Ladakh, you will actually see the more authentic part of Tibet. Because if you go to Tibet in China, you see that Tibet has actually developed a lot of new structures, and you don't really get a feeling of what you think Tibet should be like. And also some children down here. Actually, the Ladakhis was considered to be like hillbillies by the rest of India, because in the 70s they were considered to be comical, ignorant country bumpkins. They were really poor, but they were happy because they didn't know anything better. But later on, with commercialization and all that, lives become too complicated, and that is when the Ladakhis begin to feel poor. Venerable Sangasena, actually, after he started the center in the IMMC, he actually went out to meet up with families to encourage them to send their children to school. Many parents do not want their children to go to school, instead to help them in the farm. But those who are convinced just allowed the children to go over to Leh and to stay in this residential school. And of course, the lives of the children have really changed. So later on, I will just mention some of the success stories that you have at in MIMC. So when you see a monastery standing in this kind of barren landscape with a snow mountain at the back, this is in fact a picture of what Ladakh is all about. In India, people pray for rain. When in Ladakh, they pray for the glaciers or the snows to melt in order to provide them with drinking water and agriculture. So the melting snow from the glaciers are really quite important to them. So with this global warming and climate change, it will in fact affect the Ladakhis if the melting of the glaciers happen too fast, because they need the water for survival. You can see the landscape is really dry. Yeah. Here you have a monk walking past a fluttering flags towards a chotan. A chotan is really a stupa, and that symbolizes the mind of the Buddha. And it also represents a process of practice and transformation to gain enlightenment. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they call this a chotan. In Sri Lanka, they call it a stupa. In Myanmar, a taitya. In China, they call it a pagoda. Here is you see this this is Om Mani Padme Hum. So when Buddhism came to Ladakh, it came via Kashmir in the 2nd century. So Buddhism has been in Ladakh for about 2,000 years, but of course for Tibetan Buddhism, it's about 1,000 years. And then Kashmir itself was a flourishing center for Buddhism before it became Muslim. And the words here you see as Om Mani Padme Hum is dedicated to Avalokiteshvara Kweteshwara or Kuan Yin. And you see this everywhere. Om Mani Padme Hum. All right, here you'll see two symbols down here. One symbol is a drum, right? Sorry, it's an umbrella. It's an umbrella. Umbrella is a sign of protection, and on the right is the vase for treasures, which represents prosperity. This happens to be the rooftop of the Hermes Monastery, and this is the center of the Drukpa sect of Tibetan Buddhism. And I was actually attracted by the landscape at the back, because you could see that these looks like sedentary rocks, and as if it has been pushed aside. And indeed, Ladakh used to be at the bottom of the sea. And as a result of the movement of the continental plates, it has been pushed up from the bottom of the sea. Now it becomes the Himalayas, the mountains. All right, I mentioned about the Karakoram Highway. In our journey, we have to drive on mountain rocks and mountain passes. And here you could see that the rocks are black in color. That is because this is Karakoram. Kara means black, Koram means gravel, black gravel. So sometimes we have to take mountain passes like this. which is really quite amazing. And of course, the height of this mountain pass where the vehicle is traveling is a few thousand feet above the top of Mount Kinabalu. So Malaysia, we think, oh, Mount Kinabalu is so, so high, is our highest mountain. But in Ladakh, Mount Kinabalu is the starting point. And after that, you go higher. All right. And as we begin to go higher, and of course, the air gets thinner and the head gets lighter. And sometimes when you walk, you feel like you're giddy, you feel as if you're intoxicated, and breathing becomes labored. So every time when you take a few steps, you have to stop and pant because you feel breathless after every few steps. But what amazes me was you see cyclists cycling up the mountain. Wow, it's amazing because for us, even to walk is, you have to put quite a bit of effort. In the Ladakh itself, there are a few passes. The highest motorable pass in the world, that means a pass that you can drive through, is called Kadong La. La, as you know, means pass. It's a pass of Kadong. And we have to pass through this Kadong La Pass to the other side to Nubra Valley. And that is, and when you do that, you get a panoramic view of the Karakoram Mountains. And if you go slightly beyond that, you actually see Pakistan. All right. Now, this Kadong La Pass is 18,383 feet. So we will normally stop at Kadong La Pass, Kadong La, and just for kind of a toilet break. And when you get out of the car, you feel, oh, I'm a bit giddy already. But sometimes you have snow. So some of our participants will run and play with the snow and all that. Some others, after walking to the toilet, they come back to the car and just sleep because the head will be spinning. The air is thin. So different people will respond to the thin air slightly differently. So at 18,000 feet, you're actually 5 kilometers above the sea. And also 5,000 feet above Mount Kinabalu. Isn't that amazing? So this is the highest point that we passed using a vehicle. But the stamina of the cyclist is quite incredible. But sometimes people who are in the mountains, when they go down to lowlands, they go to the sea level, that's when they get sick. They're not used to the kind of air pressure that we receive. But when you go up to the mountains, we need to get adjusted. But after a few days, you get adjusted, actually. Your body will start producing hemoglobins, and you become more efficient in getting the oxygen in the air. And actually, when you come down from Ladakh, you actually become younger. You got much more oxygen in your body. So that's a secret of youth. You go to Ladakh and you become young. Okay, so we also have to pass through gorges like this. Can you see? It's incredible, isn't it? It's a gorge. And landslides sometimes happen in the mountains. So sometimes when you travel, your journey itself might be delayed slightly because of a landslide. But don't worry, if you travel in the road on the road in the afternoon, you wouldn't have rocks falling on you, because the landslide normally occur in the very early morning because of the very cold temperature and expansion and contraction. That is when you have a landslide. Okay, so you will see sometimes the gorges are almost vertical, and the river runs through the valley. Right? This river will later join the Indus River. You see a little bit of river down there. So this is a scenery that we don't ever see in Malaysia. It's just amazing, isn't it? I must also mention that the roads in Ladakh are being maintained by the Indian Army, simply because of the border issues with China. So they must make sure that in case of trouble, the soldiers can get to the border area as quickly as possible. So the roads are fairly well maintained. Yeah. And we have been seeing a lot of pictures of mountains, but sometimes in between the mountains, you have valleys. And when you have valleys, sometimes a small river will flow through the valley, bringing the water from the melting snow and glaciers. And then in this valley, it becomes really green, fertile. And this valley is called Tinsmagang. This is the home village of Venerable Sangasena. It's a beautiful valley. It is also called a valley of the apricots. So you get beautiful apricots. Dr. Charlie was mentioning about when to go for fruits. That is, Dr. Charlie, that's also my favorite time, going to Ladakh, because we actually want to eat the apricots straight from the tree. And you also get different varieties of apples as well. So we like to go in late summer or early autumn. This is where the apples will ripen. The walnuts and the apricots are there, but walnuts comes a bit later. Normally we try to aim for the apricots. Okay, and you see a picture of a building here. This is actually the hotel that we stay in. Okay, beautiful valley. All right. Okay, here you have apples. So in Ladakh, there is an abundance of various types of apples, because here in Malaysia we just go to the supermarket and we just get certain types of varieties of apple. But in Ladakh, every tree is different, right? Sometimes you have one tree and the next tree, the apples taste will be different. Sometimes in one tree, they might give the sweetest, the crunchiest apple that you ever tasted. It is so fantastic. And then you pluck the apple from the next tree, it's mushy, it's flat tasting, it doesn't taste good. So you know that after people have tried apples on the tree, you know which tree they go for, the tree with the best apples. And the same thing could also be said about apricots as well, because different trees will give different tasting apricots. And the hotel that we stay in Tings Magang, there are some very good apricot trees. After the apricots has fallen, they make jams for that. But this is what happens. Apricots. This is a grandma. She's 93 years old. She's the auntie of Venerable Sankarsena. She's drying apricots in the sun. Apricots last on the tree for about 2 weeks. So if you're too early, apricots are not ripen. You come too late, the apricots are all fallen from the trees. Okay, so the timing needs to be right, and sometimes it's difficult because sometimes the summer could come a bit early or come a bit later. And the apricots are also used to make apricot jam. They're excellent apricot jam from the hotel that we stay. Yeah. This is what you see a shorten in the highway. And so we are on our journey to Pangong Lake. Pangong Lake became very famous because in the final scene of the movie called The Three Idiots, Hindustani movie, it's a very funny movie, won awards. It's a very good movie. But the last part of the movie shows you the Pangong Lake, and the Pangong Lake is really quite fantastic, so beautiful. And so we were traveling on this road to Pangong Lake, and it's very common to see shortens like this. Yeah. And this shorten is sometimes these are religious symbols to bring blessings to people traveling on this road. Sometimes places where accidents normally occur, they will also put a shorten down there in order to bring blessings. And because the elevation is about 4,000 to 5,000 meters, you will also see many low-lying clouds. So sometimes you'll be completely covered in clouds. Can you see how low the clouds are? Yeah. These are the goats, because we are now in the Chantang area. Chantang is about 16,000 feet above sea level. That is about 3,000 feet above Mount Kinabalu. So it's really high elevation. And this is the best place for this type of goats, right? This kind of shaggy goat. These goats have two coats of hair. The outer coat is the coarser coat. That is really for summer. When winter approach, they will have an undercoat, a soft down. So the soft down itself could actually be used for warm clothing. They're very soft and light. And in fact, they are being used to make cashmere textile. In fact, the cashmere textiles are selling in New York or Paris, where it can cost you thousands of dollars, will come from farms like this. And these goats are thoroughbred. So it is possible for you to trace who are the parents of this goat, who are the grandparents of this goat, who are the great grandparents of this goat, so that they keep track of the family lineage in order to get the best fiber from the goats itself. But of course, the farmer is very, very tough life. It is high in the mountains, a very arid. Winter is extremely cold. And they don't get very much from this fiber. But then by the time it goes down and land up in Paris and New York, the cashmere become extremely expensive. The child that I sponsored actually come from a place like this, coming from this area of Chantang. Here, for photographers, actually going to Ladakh is one of the amazing sights, especially in the mountains. Can you see the mountain lights are quite amazing? You have these low-lying clouds, and you've got a burst of sunshine on one side of the hills. This is not the kind of light that you get in lowland. Um, Now we don't normally see this kind of light when you go in a group, because sometimes you make sure that you reach the hotel when the sun is down, just to ready for dinner. The reason why I was able to see some of these mountain lights was because our journey here was a bit delayed, because we had to wait for our permits, because as you go to the Pangong Lake, this is a restricted area, so you need the permit, and we have to wait for the permits and our passports to come, and therefore we started the journey a bit late. And therefore the good thing is that as the sun was setting, you begin to get you are able to see the evening lights, which is amazing, very beautiful. This is the Pangong Lake itself. Just as the sun is setting, and we see, wow, this scene is fantastic. This is maybe like a scenery from the Lord of the Rings. And if you look closely, you could actually see there is a little bit of a monastery down here. A Chotan is not really a monastery, very small structure. And so in this Pangong Lake, which is on eastern side of Ladakh, 40% of this lake lies in India and 60% in Tibet, China. And recently there's a skirmish along this lake. The lake lies on the line of actual control, and so sometimes in the mountain pass, boundary borders are not are poorly defined, and the rivers keep changing courses, so sometimes it is difficult to know where the border lies. In winter, the waters will freeze, so it is possible for you to travel from the Indian side of the Pangong Lake to the Chinese side. Yeah. And this is another scenery of Pangong Lake in the evening. The water becomes blue, very deep blue. Sometimes the color can change to green or to red. Right? So the colors itself can change, many colors on this Pangong Lake. This is Pangong Lake during the day, and I was sitting on a rock and trying to be like a Guruji sitting on a rock, but you could see that the waters of this lake is beautiful. It's clear water, and this lake itself, like, it's a hidden gem. As I mentioned, that this was used as a site for the Hindustani blockbuster The Three Idiots. Check it out, I'm sure you'll enjoy this movie, The Three Idiots. And the beauty of the colors makes you really wonder, is this place real, or is it just camera tricks? And as a result of this movie, The Three Idiots, many Indian tourists now come over to the Pangong Lake. So this has now become a tourist attraction. And this is another part of the evening lights, mountain lights. Here you have the setting sun lighting up the scenery in gold, and it gets reflected in the water. Amazing, isn't it? Mountain lights. Okay, so that is the mountainside. Actually, I have so many pictures, but I have to make sure that I don't put too many pictures. Otherwise, by the time I give the presentation, half the crowd would have actually left. So I have to select the pictures, but there are many amazing pictures of Ladakh. Let us move on to the next section, which is on monks. Okay, these are the monks. So Ladakh has remained secluded from the rest of the world. The rural areas are inaccessible. It's mountainous, it's remote, it's isolated. And they're cut off actually from the rest of India between 6 to 7 months because of the wintry climate in the high mountains. And so what the families would do is they like to sit around. The kitchen is the best place in the house because the stove is always on. So you get warm and you can drink butter tea, you can eat roasted barley and cakes, and maybe take a nap on the low bunches. Yeah, so the kitchen is the best place. So the Ladakhis are really the Tibeto-Burma, and some of them are the Indo-Aryan descent as you move closer to Pakistan and Kashmir and Pakistan. And their culture has been strongly influenced by Tibetan Buddhism. So in the past, it was very common for a family to have one or two sons to become a monk in a monastery. And every house will have a shrine upstairs for them to do their puja. So having sons as monks means that you actually have less mouth to feed. And the other thing is the boys will learn how to read and write, which is part of monastic training, which is good for the boys. So whether or not they want to remain as monks or return back to lay life, at least they know how to read and write. And you can see how beautiful the murals are. So every temple will have murals like this. This is Venerable Sangasena. He was the founder of Mahabodhi International Meditation Center. And but MIMC is not only a meditation center in Leh. This is really an amazing project that has transformed. It is 250 acres of deserted or barren land. And Venerable Sangasena used to say that not even a grass will grow here. It is just absolutely dry. It's a desert. But he was given 250 acres. And so he wanted to build a campus for learning for children, especially children from underprivileged families. So he established a campus. He has residential schools here. Besides a school in Leh, there are also Mahabodhi branch schools in 2 other villages. And he has also a school for the blind and visually impaired students. There is a hospital, a home for poor folks, old folks, those who cannot walk or work anymore. And besides that, there are also guest houses for visitors, and where you have a twin sharing room with attached bathroom. So we are quite comfortable. So we stay in these guest rooms. There is hot water. And the income that is received from the visitors help to provide the income to sustain the campus. So it's a good idea for us to go to Ladakh one day, because by so doing, not only do we experience something completely different, we also have a chance to support MIMC. Okay, because you know your accommodation and food and all that, your expenses becomes income for them. So he joined the Indian Army when he was 17, because that was the in thing to do. He was very impressed with the uniform that the army uses, so he was attracted by the uniform. And actually at 17 years old, he was just 1 year younger than the 18, which is the required age, but he managed to look at the recruiting officer in the eye and convince him that he's able to do what other people are doing. Yeah. Actually in Ladakh there was nothing else that he can actually do except to join the army. So that was a very glamorous thing for him to do. He was the youngest in the platoon, but he was the most outstanding also. So one day what happens is that he has a relative by the name of Bhikkhu Ananda, who became a monk at Mahabodhi Society in Bangalore. And he spoke to Venerable Sangasena about the value of compassion in the monastic life. After talking to his relative, he realized that what is he doing with his life? Why does he want to become a soldier? So at that time, he actually decided to become a monk. So he became a monk at the age of 21. From 17 was joined the army. 21, he became a monk in Bangalore. Again, this is the background is in the monastery, Tibetan monastery. Okay, so Venerable Sangasena here was giving a talk and was leading chanting. Actually, Venerable has got a lovely musical voice. He's got a good sense of humor, and he delivers his words of wisdom with so much modesty. Here we are having some kind of chanting just outside. This young monk that is looking at Venerable Sangasena is Bante's nephew. His name is Jinananda. He's the administrator at MIMC. I thought this picture is really quite nice. The way he looks at Venerable Sangasena. His elder brother is also a monk. His name is Venerable Nagasena. He was the one who introduced to me the idea of Ladakh. He says, in our schools, we are singing the songs that you write. And I was so amazed, like, where is Ladakh? So Venerable Nagasena introduced me to Ladakh. And his sister is also a nun trained in Taiwan. And she speaks Chinese better than English, okay? All right. So Venerable Sangasena has little monks and little nuns under training. And these projects of great compassion are supported by donations from overseas guests who visit the campus. And some other people come over to the campus. They start giving some kind of donation. You see at the back, there's students all in their uniform. In front, there are monks and nuns. Actually, they're chanting before we start going off to the mountains. The Ladakhis are poor. and so they can give. They don't give much. So it is with the foreign donation that this campus is run. And these are some old photographs. You see, 9 years of monastic training at Bangalore. Venerable Sanghasena decided to return to Ladakh. His idea is that he wants to teach meditation. He said that when he first advertised that he wanted to teach meditation in Leh, 3 people turned up for the meditation class, and they were on the upper floor, first story. So he got them sitting down and he asked them to watch the breath. This is what you call anapanasati, watching the breath. Huh? And then he was watching the breath, and after a while, the room was awfully quiet. When he opened his eyes, he saw that everybody has left and the room was empty. And when he looked out the window, he saw these three people. They've gone downstairs and they were laughing because they are more used to the Tibetan tradition in which meditation is based on chant, more mantras and chanting. And they don't see the value of why do you want to watch the breath? So then Bhante realized that meditation is probably for people who have food on the table, but it's not a priority for the local people. Their priority is to provide education, basic education in schools. But the Ladakhis in the mountains are really poor. There are no education facilities for the children. And even if there are facilities, the parents are too poor to send their kids to school. So he feels, what he should do? Maybe he should try to open a school for these kids. And here you see a tent with 3 children in front. This is not only a tent. This is a home for the people. This is in the Chantang area. This is where my sponsored child comes from, where they have goats, mountain goats. So they live in this area. And can you imagine in winter where the temperature can fall below 40 degrees centigrade or even colder than that? And when the wind starts blowing, because you had hardly any trees to stop, wow, with the wind chill factor, it becomes, wow, very, very cold. You see, so the people live as herdsmen. And so Bhante's heart felt that he really must do something for these poor children. And I find that this picture is really amazing. Can you see this little girl? Look at her hair. Look at how dark she is, being open to the sun, you know. And you know, the girls in Ladakh tends to be very, very neglected because in their society, women lies at the bottom of the rank of priorities. And illiteracy in the mountains is really high, especially the girls. So if there is education, education is probably for the boys and not for the girls. So Bhante decided to establish a residential school, first at MIMC, and he started with 5 children, 5 children. Now it has grown to 550 students of comprising males and female. So the successful school in MIMC in Leh means that he could actually start branch schools in his village in Tingsmagang and another village called Bukabur. And each of them will have about 120 students each, He felt that the little girls in the mountainous regions could get some education. It will really empower them. It will completely change their lives. So this is the girl that you see from the Chantang, was brought to Leh for schooling. And after she's cleaned up, after she got a haircut, after she changed her clothes into the uniform, wow, it's quite amazing. You will not recognize her anymore. And this is a picture, this is one of the early pictures of Bhante walking with children behind him. When they are given a nice haircut, they look so different now. And this picture is really a symbolic picture of Reverend Sanghasena leading little girls to a brighter future. So they don't no longer have to slog in the mountains looking after goats, collecting wood and grass, walking half a kilometer to collect water from the stream. So after the schools for the girls came up, it was just a small house, a small building which they have for the girls. People started asking, Bhante, how about having a school for the Ladakhi boys as well? So then he started taking in the boys, and so now it becomes co-educational. That is the residential school in MIMC. And when he started the project, he thought, maybe he will get a donation from Japan and Europe, because the people in Japan and Europe tends to be quite wealthy. But the problem is he doesn't know anybody in Europe or Japan. And the local people thought he was crazy. They mock him. They say, this is a crazy monk. Thinking want to build a campus in a land where there is no water, no money, no road. But he was not discouraged because he has a strong calling. He feels that he can do it. He says that it is not no problem. What he needs to do is to write his ideas on a piece of paper and get it printed out. A piece of paper don't cost much, just some ink on the paper. And then if people saw his sincerity and compassion, the funds started coming in. And that is how the project grew. It's quite amazing. Huh? And here you see, this is the early school. You see the students here. Yeah? This is how it started. Can you see how lovely and clean the girls are? Yeah, all dressed up like that with their caps. Yeah. So after, so the children are taken from very poor families, and they're actually given the best education in Ladakh. And so the numbers have actually grown, and in the Leh itself, it's they have residential facilities. In Tinsmagang and Bokabur, very limited residential facilities because people could come from home, right? And this was how the early picture of the campus, 250 acres, all spread out, and you see it is actually like a desert. And but they managed to get some bits of water, and managed to grow some trees. All right. So when it started, there was no water, no proper roads, just harsh desert land. But it's through his tenacity and compassion over so many years that Mahabodhi campus began to emerge. And it is very fortunate that the campus is actually sitting on a large store of fresh water, fresh underground water that has been accumulating through the centuries because of the melting snow and it's trapped underground. The problem is how to get the water from underground up so that you can use this water. Otherwise, there is no water. It's arid like a desert. Then something happens. Something happens. There is a water project from Sister Ramona from Sandakan. Sister Ramona happens to go on the trip led by Datuk Charlie. And when she went to see the project of at IMC, she was very deeply touched, and she was actually crying actually to see this project. And she feels that, okay, this is something that I can help. And when she asked Venerable Sangasena, how much do you need? He started mentioning all the minor projects. He said, no, some more. How much do you need? And so the costing of things started rising. And he says, tell me, how much do you need? But actually, Sister Ramona do have the financial support. Yeah. So she donated this water project. They were able to pump the water from underground. It's like an artisan well. And they get very good quality water underground that is now being used for general household usage, for washing, and for agriculture. All right. And so this project is also in memory for the father as well, because she wanted to see something good, something that can actually make a difference in the lives of people. So Sister Ramona will always be remembered for her outstanding gift to the Ladakhis. In Italian, they probably call her Santa Ramona, means the Lady Saint Ramona, for giving this kind of support to the Ladakhis. Huh? And this is how the campus looks like. So from an arid desert-like landscape, the water project under Sister Ramona has now transformed the campus into an oasis. Now you have apple trees and apricot trees. You have vegetables they can use for eating and also sell, actually. And they are also grown flowers. So Sister Ramona was like as if being sent by the Devas to help MIMC out and to bring the project to fruition. And they are using also solar panels in order to generate power. So now you also have pipe hot water coming from the pipe, which is very much needed because it's very cold in the mountains, especially during winter. This is the meditation hall at IMC campus, and you could see the trees are these are what you call poplar trees. Poplar, Poplar, poplar. And poplar is good for making houses because the timber runs straight up, so you can use it as raftings, as pillars for construction material. And can you see the barren landscape at the back? So this was how it was like, now becoming an oasis of apple trees and apricot trees. Now, during one of the tours that I led, Brother Henry Bay, which came along with my group, donated towards the expansion of this meditation hall. So this meditation hall is expanded because MIMC runs camps and retreats for yogas and meditation, attracting participants from many parts of the world. All right, so this is the meditation hall, and here you could see students in an assembly. They come in at the age of 6 and they study up to Form 4, where later on, after Form 4, they leave for college. So MIMC considered to be one of the best schools in India. The students are performing very well. They win awards at the national level. This is competition in India. The students will win awards. And some of the students, many of the students have gone to college, and some have graduated even with PhD. Can you imagine? These are students from very deprived background, up in the mountains. They're actually taken and they're being given the education facilities, and it completely changed everything. Completely changed. So they say that education is a great equalizer, and it has the power to change the destinies of these Ladakhis. So these girls and boys no longer have to be confined, destined to be herdsmen and farmers. Their life completely changed because of the opportunity that's given to them. And here we are at the female hostel, and the MC was one of the students here, and she spoke in flawless English. We were told that she was brought into MIMC with two other little girls when they were very young. They were like 6 years old. And that year, winter was very bad, very bitter that year in her village. The village was covered with snow and ice. So an army captain brought in the 3 girls to MIMC. He brought these girls to Bante to say that these 3 girls take shelter at MIMC to get food and warm shelter and maybe some education. He says that when the weather gets warmed up after winter, he will come back and take the girls and take the home. So Venerable Sanghasena waited for a couple of years and never saw the captain. The captain didn't return. So one day when he saw the captain, he said, "Hey, captain, do you remember you're supposed to bring in the 3 girls back once winter is over?" The captain replied, "Oh, Bante, you must be joking. Because the girls are so well taken care of here in MIMC. Why should I bring them home? They're so much better here." So can you see that when a girl from a deprived background gets good education, she can speak flawless English, and she can perform as well as any city girl from a privileged background. So Venerable Sanghasena is right. Education is a great equalizer, and it completely changes the life of these girls. They no longer have to be illiterate. They no longer have to work in the mountains carrying bales of wood and on a back or to tend animals. It's completely changed now. Some of them go to colleges. So unlike the usual education that is normally offered at monasteries, the monks and nuns here study the Indian national curriculum like the lay people. So they are given the normal secular training besides getting religious training. So this actually gives them the option. Later on, if they decide not to remain as a monk or a nun, they can go out and look for a job. And this is Venerable Chosang. He's now under training in Myanmar. So after the training is over, he will be able to do some service for the Buddhist community. And this picture was taken at a branch called Bokabur, which is quite close to Kashmir. And you can see how lovely the children are. That's why our Malaysian ladies, when they're given an opportunity to sponsor these children, they're so captivated by the lovely children. These are Ladakhi children. And this is Tenzin Danchen. He was a very bright boy in Bokabur in school. See his brown, sparkling hazel brown eyes, lovely eyes. And the next year that I came, he became the master of ceremony for the concert. And he's got a prepared script, and he was reading it, very, very good English. So now Sanjay has grown up and he has become a monk in Nepal, and he's got such lovely eyes. Now I hope that the Ladakhi female devotees don't give him trouble, so that he will continue to remain as a monk. Okay, now this is not Ladakhi. This is Jin Yang from Penang, whom I sponsored for the Ladakh tour. That year I sponsored both Jin Yang and Joshua Koo. Both of them are of the same age, and they took the public speaking course that we conduct at BGF. So he was only about 18 years old that I brought Jin Young and Joshua over to MIMC, and he actually loved Ladakh. So because he has undergone the public speaking course, so we push him, hey, Jin Young, you better go up the stage and make a speech. So after his Ladakh trip, he went over to Tokyo at Waseda University to get to do his bachelor's degree. He won a scholarship. I was told that he's got a few scholarships, so he must be he must be doing very well in Japan, and graduated with a distinction. And after that, he won another scholarship to do his master's degree at Tsinghua University in Beijing. Now he's working while planning to pursue for his PhD. He wants to do his PhD study. So this is Jin Young. When you go over to Ladakh, you fall in love with Ladakh. You fall in love with the people. Now, let me also mention about Jin Young. After his graduation, because of his love for Ladakh, he started the Vira Life Academy to run the summer schools in Ladakh. So he runs retreats in yoga, shiatsu, meditation, trekking. His participants come from different parts of the world. Jin Young himself is now he can be an instructor of yoga. He's been trained as an instructor, and he also has started some eco-tourism projects to conduct mindfulness retreats and expedition in Ladakh. He already ran 2 summer camps, but unfortunately, because of the COVID-19, the camps have to be, he could not continue the camp, so he's got to be suspended for a while. Meanwhile, he has also raised funds to buy the heating system for the Mahabodhi old age home. He also raised funds to buy furniture for a boarding school, for the rural nomadic schools, and also for the Mahabodhi hospital. It's quite incredible for somebody in the early 20s, don't you think? Jin Young has really done well, and I feel very happy that even for the Malaysians who goes on there, people they want to do something in order to make a difference in the lives of other people. One of the things that we do when we go over to Ladakh is to bring gifts to the students at MIMC, because it brings so much joy to the students who look forward for the visitors from Malaysia and Singapore. So what we do is that we build in the cost of gifts in our tour package, and then we arrange in order to get these gifts available. So when we're there, we will give presents to the students, and they just love it. So this is one of the contributions that we can do when visitors come to the MIMC, is to give child sponsorship. By child sponsorship means that you give a lump sum contribution once a year, and this will cover expenses for the child, for his food, accommodation, living expenses, and all that. And that means it reduces the heavy burden on MIMC. They have to depend on international funds to help to support the children. There's so many children, and the children have to be fed, have to be clothed, and for them to be able to sustain, right? So this is the project of compassion. Later on, Datuk Charlie will talk a little bit about how, if you want to get into this kind of a sponsorship of a child, you can do so. Now I'm going to speak to you about some sponsored child, which is quite interesting. This young boy is called Minggu Tam Chos. He was a student at Bekabur branch school, and at that time when I brought the group, he was the master of ceremony of the student performance. He was bright and he spoke excellent English, and so the students will study in the school up to the age of 14 years old, and after that they were moved from Bekabur to the main campus in Leh in order to do the secondary education. So we were told when we were there that there are many children there in the Bekabur school that do not have sponsors. So my group members wants to sponsor the children, but we do not know how to choose, right? Because they give us a long list on it. Oh, I don't know how to choose. So the request is that, can the children who have not been sponsored please stand in a row? So the students were standing in a row, and Minggu Tamchas was actually standing down there, right? Standing in line with all the children. And our women folks were so fascinated by the beautiful gifts. So we came down there was a kind of a platform. They came down to the platform, rushing, each of them getting a child for sponsorship. You may think like a jumble sale or what. So, but Mingo was actually standing in line, but he was being overlooked I do not know why he was overlooked. Maybe they think, oh, he's just a master of ceremony. He probably is so bright, he probably have a sponsor. But actually, Mingo was not sponsored. So he's standing because he's not a sponsored child. There one of our member from Singapore, his name is Richard C. And he saw Richard has got a very sharp eye. Richard is a very talented person with a sharp eye. And he saw Mingo was actually standing alone. So he went to Mingo. He says, Mingo, he says, do you have a sponsor? And Mingo says, no. You know. So then Richard says, okay, then in which case I will sponsor you. Wow. Mingo was so happy that even tears were running through running, so he actually had to run away because he was actually crying. Because education is so expensive for the poor Ladakhi family. And Mingo has finally found a sponsor. So there must be a special day that when Richard found Mingo, and Mingo had a sponsor for him. And I remember that when we were departing in our vehicle, Mingo was running behind our vehicle, waving his hands at us, together with a man who could possibly be his father. Now, what happened to Mingo? Mingo is now 20 years old, and he's already finished school at MIMC, and he's now studying commerce in Leh. And he wants one day to come to Singapore to work. And he's so respectful of Richard. He calls Richard Sir Richard. Wow, how wonderful. And all this, thinking about the sponsors. Wow, wonderful. Mingo, Mingo Tamchos. Then you see me standing with a young boy. Now his name is Jigmek Norbu. He was a child that I was sponsoring since he was 6 years old. So I sponsored him actually for 12 years. He comes from a small family, a poor family in the cold Changtang Mountains. And you saw the Changtang Mountains, right? The one with the tent. He has actually turned 18 years old this year, and he was actually looking for a job. So he's no longer in MIMC. Jingna actually turned out to be a tall young fella. When I was there, I haven't heard him speaking, haven't heard his voice, because he's so quiet and so shy. But apparently he loves playing football and he's good in maths. But unfortunately, he was it last year? Last year he had a ruptured appendix at home in the mountains, and so the journey to bring him down from the mountains to the hospital in Leh took many hours. There was also a traffic jam. So unfortunately, we lost Jimnet. He died of appendicitis. And he comes from a very poor family. He was the oldest child. He was not able to earn money to help the family. Now, there is also another picture, and this is the picture of Lordon Tonyot. I think easier to call him London. Loldon is not so easy for us, Loldon Tanyat. Now, at MIMC, the big boys will look after the younger boys. So London was looking after Jingmet like a big brother, okay? And they were actually a good match because London was very chatty, while Jingmet was very quiet. And, so London has also finished, not only from IMC, he's finished his bachelor's degree, he's finished his master's degree, he's now working for his PhD. So can you see how amazing it is for Reverend Sankasena to have established education, and the children are doing so well now. So at IMIMC, there are also home for the aged, and this is the home for the visually impaired and the blind, and many of the visually impaired children. Yeah, here you can see this is a resident from the home for the aged offering flowers, and the older folks will plant flowers, and the place is most beautiful with the flowers. So they took flowers from the garden and offers to us. Yeah? So we go into the home for the aged, and this is Shirley Yeo from Singapore. She says that very often sponsors will go for the monks. After the monks are taken up, then they go for the nuns, and after the nuns are taken up, they go for the children. But very few people think of sponsoring elderly people. They always want to go for the cute ones, the little children. So this is Sister Shirley Yeo from Singapore, and she has actually sponsored a Ladakhi female, an elderly woman who has to be also sponsored as well. And this is the home for the aged. They are the residents of the aged at MIMC. Actually, they are the happiest people in the campus. They have no complaints. Being old, they are no longer fit at home. Their limbs are no longer strong for them to walk up the mountain slopes. They had no longer had the strength to do farm work, cannot carry water from the stream. And they eat what is left at the dining table because the most substantial food is actually set aside for the younger members who need the strength to do hard work. So actually, it is very tough being an old person in Ladakh. And during winter, it's very tough on them. So Venerable Sanghasena decided to establish a home for the old folks. And he opened the old folks at IMC in order to care for them. Now, unlike other homes, here the children from the schools will come and interact with the old folks and care for the elderly. So you can see the interaction between the young and the old folks, and it brings some kind of happiness and connection between the two different generations. Huh? It's wonderful. Yeah. This is Brother Jerry Ong from Singapore, who came with me with Ladakh with his wife and two children. When we were at the Mahabodhi school in Bokabor, we were told that they need a bus because the children, there are not much residential facilities. The children have to walk. They have to walk, and sometimes it's really tough, because they live far away from school. So the group of Malaysians and Singaporeans decided to sponsor the bus, and the main sponsor was Brother Jerry Ong from Singapore. Then the following year, Brother Jerry came to Ladakh with us again, and then he took a picture of the bus that where he was the main sponsor. Can you see Bokabur? Mahabodhi Barrage School. And when we are in the Bokabur, we heard that actually the school in Tinsmagang, the bus caught fire. So they don't have bus. So then our group said, never mind, we raised some money to buy a bus for Tinsmagang. So our group donated 2 buses, 2 school buses for the children. And you know what it means by walking in winter? This is the terrain that the children have to walk if you don't have buses. Can you imagine the little kids walking on this road like that during winter? Wow, tough. Yeah. So a school bus is very badly needed. Yeah? So sometimes we live in comfortable lives and we take our lives almost too easy. We don't realize the difficulty that kids in other parts of the world experience. And this project by this mission, this work by Reverend Sanghasena is actually so amazing. All right, now we'll move on to the next portion. We go to monasteries. Ladakh is famous for the monasteries because it speaks to the spiritual nature of the Ladakhis. Every village will have its own monastery with its own story. This is Tikshe Monastery. It's about 17 kilometers from Leh, and it belongs to the Gelugpa order. And in the Gelugpa order, the Dalai Lama is head of the order. The monastery is about 3,600 meters high, or about 11,800 meters up above the sea level, and it is on the right side of the Indus River. So the monastery is 12-story, and on the side of a hill, and this resembles Potala Palace in Lhasa. So they say this is the Ladakhi Potala. And of course, for the monastery, the most important part of the monastery located on the top, the one that is colored red. And we will go there. I'll bring you there. Okay. This is another monastery. Now, as you cross the Nubra Valley, or the Valley of Flowers, you remember the Kadongla Pass, 18,000 feet above sea level. We cross onto the other side, across the mountains, to the Karakoram Mountains, and then we come across these old monasteries. There are many monks here, and the shrines has a wonderful energy. It seems to reflect the many monks that have prayed in the halls through the many centuries. So we actually, feel the ambience of this place. Now, let me show you this monastery from a different perspective. You can see this monastery is set in between rocks and all that, right? In the side of a mountain. At the back is a snow-covered mountain. Let us see another picture. Now, can you see the monastery? It is set up in the mountains, and I'm taking the picture from a valley. Yeah. So the Ladakhi thinks that it is an act of great merit to build monasteries on mountains. You can imagine it takes a lot of effort to bring the building materials, the wood, the cement, and all that, and to build the monastery by hand, where you don't have much machinery. Of course, in the past, early century, they don't have machinery, and building materials have to be brought up by animals or by human strength. And they think that the more effort you make in building a monastery, the more meritorious they get. So they build a monastery up in the mountains. Ayo. Can you imagine a monastery like that? This is this is a beautiful monastery. This is a Tiger Nose Monastery. And it can be seen on a highway as you travel from Leh to Hermes Monastery. It is called Chamre Monastery. This was built in 1664. And it's about 40 kilometers from Leh. All right. At one time, this monastery that was built by Lama. It dedicated this monastery to a king. All right. So now I passed this monastery a couple of times, but could not take a good picture because sometimes it's a bit like misty and hazy and all that. But this time around, was able to get the blue skies, and the blue skies is also reflected in the stream that flows by. So this is a beautiful picture. And actually in Ladakh, as you get out of the city, the Himalayan air is so free from haze that sometimes you can't even tell the distance, because you don't have a haze to tell you that as it gets more hazy, that is more distant. You don't have a sense of distance because everything is so clear. And sometimes it's so clear that the mountains look as if you're cut with cardboards and pasted on the blue sky. It's like that. The sky is so blue, clear blue. And the mountains is like being pieces of cardboard stuck on the sky. That is Ladakh. And of course, sometimes at night, when the moon is not up, when you don't have moon, you see the starry skies. Yeah. Provided if you're in the city, you probably will not be able to see the sky so well. This is a statue of Guru Rinpoche, or Guru Padmasambhava, or known as the Precious Guru. He has come from the Swat Valley. Swat Valley is located in the modern day Pakistan. So in other words, these days, we will call him a Pakistani teacher. So he came from Pakistan. And he was the one who brought Buddhism to Tibet, because at that time, Swat Valley was a bustling Buddhist center. From Swat Valley, then you go up the Karakoram Mountains and you land up in China, actually. So he came to Tibet in the 8th century when he was invited by the king called Tristan Daksin of Tibet. Guru Padmasambhava is said to have mastered the tantric arts, and he's said to have subdued the demons in Tibet and transformed them into Dharma protectors. So actually, in the Buddhist tradition, you don't harm the demons, but you transform them. From negative becomes positive. So throughout the Himalayas, whether you are in Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, there are caves and spots associated with Guru Padmasambhava. Guru Rinpoche, all right? And Guru Rinpoche actually introduced this charm dance. This religious dance. If you're lucky, you can attend a festival featuring this charm dance, because they only perform this dance at fixed festivals. So the religious mask and costume dance performed at monasteries, where the monks will play these long horns and drums and bells and all that. Now this dance, we witnessed this dance because we were participant of the Ladakh Cultural Heritage Festival. And of course, the costumes and the headdress are very heavy, and you need the strength to perform this dance. Sometimes you have to hop around and jump around and twirl around with the cymbals and the 20-foot trumpets played by the monks. So this is the cham dance. And here in Tikshe Monastery, we have gone to the roof, Tikshe Monastery, at dawn. You have two monks blowing the conch shell at the rooftop of Tikshe at the break of dawn. I think this picture is quite famous because people like to take this picture. I've seen this kind of picture even in videos and all that. Of course, this is my picture. I did not take it from anywhere, but I think it's lovely. Blowing the conch shell at the break of dawn. Because the conch shell, the white conch shell, is one of the 8 auspicious Tibetan symbols. It represents the fame of the Buddhist teaching spreading in all directions, like the sound of the conch shell. So we just go up the roof and waited for the monks. And then the monks, two monks came, they put on the hat of the Galupa tradition and blow this horn. All right. And you could see as the sun rises, the valley in front gets lighted up. And if you can see the river, that is the Indus River. And a closer look at the conch shell. These are the conch shell that is used for the monks. The monks will blow this conch shell 3 times. And in between the blowing, this was taken during the interval. So because you got conch shell, and this conch shell are found in the mountains, it means that the mountains in Ladakh was at one time at the bottom of the sea. Because conch shells are normally found in beaches or in the ocean bed. Yeah? So this means that Ladakh was actually at the bottom of the sea before it becomes Himalayas and mountains. This is a very beautiful Maitreya Buddha. It's 49 feet tall or 15 meters. It's Maitreya Buddha. Buddha to come. Buddha come, the next Buddha. It covers 2 stories of the building. So this is a very beautiful statue of Maitreya. Because it's beautiful, it's just so famous. And this is the future Buddha. Unlike most statue of Maitreya, which sits on a throne, this one sits in the lotus posture. So you want to see the lower part of the body, you go to the lower story. This is taken at the upper story of the building. This is in Tikshe Monastery. All right. And so the next Buddha will give his teachings after the teachings of Sakyamuni Buddha completely disappears from the world. Maitreya comes from the Sanskrit word means Maitri, means love and kindness. So this is the main characteristic of this Buddha, of love and kindness. Maitreya Buddha, when the idea of Maitreya Buddha went to China, he was being transformed into the laughing Buddha. So the Buddha with a very big stomach. So the Buddhist or the Chinese, the laughing Buddha looks very different from the Ladakhi Maitreya Buddha. All right. Can you see around the monasteries? And this is how the monastery, this is the monastery door, and how Maitreya wearing this crown, and you can look into the interior of the monastery. Yeah, these are 2 monks. We happen to be there, and the 2 monks are sitting on the monastery steps. The young monk on the right is absorbed eating an apple, so somebody has given him an apple, and the monk on the left is somewhat alarmed, as if he wanted to say something to the monks. And there's a sweet wrapper in his hand because we started giving them sweets and giving them apple. And there's some mucus in his nose, so he has some runny nose. And he's got some drawings. I think he was drawing like some tattoos on spider on his arm. These monks are really cute. These are the 2 Ladakhi monks. So they join the monastery very young. They learn how to read and write. And later on, when they grow up, they can do something else. They can remain as a monk if they want. Otherwise, if they return to lay life. This is a young novice. Early in the morning, after they blow the conch shell at the rooftop, then we come down the staircase, wait at the monastery door, and the young monks will come running. They will chant the prayers at the top of their voice. This one chanting a prayer to Lama Tsongkhapa. So the older monks will prepare the shrine. The younger monks will chant at the top of their voice so loud before they enter their prayer hall. So I captured this picture of this young monk chanting. And the monasteries, the monks look after themselves as a community, and the young novices will live with the older monks as part of the family. So the novice doesn't have a mother to look after. So now he's got a senior monk who looks after him like grandpa, a grandpa looking after. So he's seated beside a grandpa monk who looks after him. And this is what you have early in the morning, because it is early morning. After the chanting, there's a break in interval. They drink their butter tea, and this is barley, roasted barley that they can put in the butter tea so it sustains the stomach. This is served at the morning puja. This is what we see as we sit in the monastery. At the side while the monks chant, it is actually very fascinating. You see the activity, and this young monk looking at the teenager monk scooping out, giving his barley. All right. So this is so the village boys joined the monastery as monks as an early life. So they learn how to read and write Tibetan. They learn how to chant, learn how to participate in religious ceremonies. So when they grow up, they can choose. Reverend Sangasena is now growing young monks in MIMC. Some of them will remain in robes when they grow up. Some others they will disrobe, and because they have received the Indian educational syllabus, they can join the lay life. This picture of this monk was not from MIMC. He was from Tikshe Monastery, and I just like the look of his eyes. He looks very pensive, as if his mind is somewhere else. I took a picture of him while he was in the Maitreya Buddha shrine. He was there, maybe just cleaning up and pouring water in the bowls. So when he saw us, he just stood aside and he looked so pensive in his, we thought this is a lovely picture. And this is Bodhidhamma. He is from MIMC. He's now under training in Myanmar. Reverend Sangasena sends out young monks to Myanmar so that they become knowledgeable monks, they learn how to meditate, they can lead community, the Buddhist community after some years of training. So these Ladakhi monks can serve overseas centers because they speak good English, and especially when they're given good monastic training, and education. So Venerable Sangasena is a real model for the young monks because he's a master that have actually put compassion into action. He bears so much burden on his shoulders, so much worry on how to keep the center running, so that the other people, the children, the people, the aged, and all that, all could benefit from his work. He has a heart of great compassion. In fact, he's a living bodhisattva. Yeah. So this is a picture of Tikshe Monastery, and it's got a double rainbow, which is considered to be very auspicious. Double rainbow over the Tikshe Monastery. So after visiting the Maitreya shrine, and after taking the previous picture, it started drizzling. Then some people say, hey, let's get back to the car because it started raining. So we had to run down to our vehicle in the car park. And just as our vehicle was coming downhill, whoosh, the rainbows appeared before our eyes. And the most amazing thing is you can see the two ends of the rainbow touching the ground, because normally we just see rainbows in the sky. We never see them touching the ground. It was such an amazing sight and so auspicious for us. After going over to Tikshe Monastery, participating in the puja, going around the monastery, making donations and all that, and then coming down, you have this double rainbow. Wow. Okay, so you can see the walls of the monastery. There are murals, and obviously it looks old. And this is nice because when it is old, it looks so authentic. So you will experience a little Tibet when you go to Bhutan. When you go to Ladakh. Now, perhaps one of the most valuable messages that I have taken back with me from Ladakh is to reflect on how I'm leading my life. Yeah. Is our life just for our own consumption and enjoyment alone? Or do we see a deeper meaning in our life? So this is a question that we need to ask ourselves. How about using some of our energy, some of our resources and love to help other people to improve their lives? Is it something that we can do? Because with every passing day, our life is shorter by 24 hours, right? Every passing day. During this short human life, can we live a life that can make a difference? It's something for us to reflect. And Venerable Sangasena has led a life with true significance by dedicating himself to improve the lives of impoverished and disadvantaged Ladakhis. Even if you think that you're not like Reverend Sangasena, you can still make the difference by giving your support. Like the way Sister Ramona has given for the water project. Brother Jerry Ong, who has contributed for the purchase of a bus. Sister Shirley Yo, who have sponsored an elderly woman. And Richard C., who had sponsored a child at MRMC. So you can make a difference by giving support. Maybe you like to do the same also, so that you can put your kindness and compassion into action. Yeah. So I've also given my email address just in case some of you express interest to join some future trips in Ladakh. or maybe you'd like to give some sponsorship. Okay, so this is my presentation, but I have allocate a little bit of time to Brother Charlie Datuk Charlie Chia, who will speak about the child sponsorship program. He's here now, and Datuk Charlie really loves Ladakh. It is like his home, like his second home, like his village, kampung. And he will also celebrate his birthday in Ladakh. And you see he's dressed like a Ladakhi tauke or some sort. He's such a strong support for MIMC. Sometimes I call him the patron saint of Ladakh. Yeah? So, Dr. Charlie, can we have you just sharing something about the sponsored child sponsorship, just in case there are people here listening who might want to sponsor a child. Some of you might have already sponsored a child already, but just for the information of others, for the 2 years and 2.5 years with the lockdown, we were not able to organize any trips to Ladakh. And so Ladakh is now doesn't have the benefit of getting the sponsorship, and it is tough running such a big campus of 250 acres and all that. So whatever helps that could come in terms of sponsorship or in terms of contribution will actually help Venerable Sanghasen. You can actually see his work. It's really quite amazing. I was so touched and so amazed by his work, and that is why I always try to bring groups over there. And also going to Ladakh is like going back to my kampong, Datuk Charlie. Okay, Datuk Charlie, you can take
Hi,
over.
everyone. Okay, hi everyone. I believe you all enjoyed the slideshow and also full of information regarding this very exotic and inspiring place called Mahabodhi International Meditation Center in Ladakh. And you notice that the children, as well as also the children for the blind, and also the elderly and the monks and the nuns, in order to support them in their education as well as also in their daily lives, there is actually what we call a sponsorship program. And this sponsorship program actually is priced if the children has what you call do not require any lodging at all. That means they stay in their home, especially in Timiskang or Bokarbu. Then it's actually USD 300. And if at the moment now in Timiskang as well as also Bokarbu, they also have hostel facilities now. It's been completed, and the students can also stay in a hostel because they could come from very far reaches of Ladakh and coming into the branch school to study. So then they will require 400 US in order to stay in the hostel. So 300 for education and 400 for boarding. But there are some sponsors who says only I sponsor only the education, and the other sponsor will sponsor the boarding. So you can either do either of these, or you want to sponsor the whole what they call education and boarding, including food, then it will be 700 US. And I will be able to post some addresses in the chat, and also to a certain extent my email address. And if you wish to sponsor a child, we will be able to send the profile of the students, because you may not have a chance to meet up with them. And at the same time, you probably just want to see the pictures and where do they come from and so on. And then you say, okay, I would like to sponsor this child. And we will set the motion where we will send you the forms, you fill it up, and then eventually you send it back to us. And each year, the child will write a letter to all the sponsors to report on their progress, as well as also the Mahabodhi school itself. They will also write another letter to let you know what are their report cards and also some of their extracurricular activities that they are involved in. And at the same time, as they progress from year to year, sometimes they may actually sort of goes into the secondary schools, or they may go into college and you would like to continue to sponsor. Then, of course, the sponsorship office will then continue to advise you how much will be the sponsorship payments to be made. And the money can be easily transferred by in US dollars to the State of India Bank under the Mahabodhi International Meditation Center bank account. And for those who are in Malaysia, and actually you can remit in ringgit Malaysia according to the latest rates to me, who will then pull up together all the donations as well as sponsorship payments, and then we will send it in one lump sum over to MIMC itself. So there are many ways to actually do some sponsorship. And I believe many of our participants in this presentation are also sponsors. And I would just like to show you some pictures of our sponsors. Basically, this is actually part of what we call the Compassion in Action sponsorship, which is transforming lives in the Himalayas, where children, like what Datuk Victor has said, that they are from a very poor background. And some of them probably may not have a chance for education. They may be in the nomadic tribes and they'll be wandering around, staying in tents. And as you can see, some of the children who are so dirty and unclean, then they are brought to the school down to Leh or one of the branch schools and subsequently being transformed. And we are actually very happy to say that quite a number of the students who were brought in during the 1990s, they are actually successful in their life. They have graduated. Some of them are doctors. There is also, like what Dr. Victor says, a student with PhD, and they have actually came back to the Mahabodhi organizations to help out in the hospitals as well as also in the schools as teachers. And one of them actually is now the principal of the Mahabodhi residential school in Leh itself. So when the sponsors get the chance to visit these Mahabodhi centers and also the schools, then that is when the student will then be brought to their sponsored parents, and the child will be then staying together for the duration of the day, and they will be chatting with each other, talk about their future. And these are some of the sponsors who have made the trips and met up with their sponsored child. Right. And these are some of the details where if you are keen to sponsor one of the child, then you can actually write to Mahabodhi International Meditation Center, or you can send an email to me. And at the same time, we will allocate the child to you. And if the child has left the school, then you say that you would like to sponsor a new one. We can continue a renewal for you. And each year itself, there will be a renewal notice, which will then let you know when to pay, how to pay, and how to send your transfer to the Mahabodhi International Meditation Center account. So like what we all know that, Bante started with only a total of about 10 children. And most of these children that you see in these pictures are already very successful. And they are also mothers, already as mothers with a few children. And we can say that Venerable Sangasena is now the grandfather monk, right? And you can see some of these are the hostels. So if they are what they call sponsored for their boarding, then the students will then stay in this hostel, which has some of the best facilities. And the students enjoying themselves, have a good time, have a good life, and hopefully have a good future. Right? And meals are always on time. And just before they take their meal, there will be a prayer. And they will always reflect their prayers for their sponsors. And it's good that they learn to be grateful. And at the same time, some of these students will get a chance to visit the home country of their sponsors too. So you may want to sponsor them over for a visit. Or there is one particular sponsor who have actually brought one of the child to Malaysia to study in the, what they call tertiary education. And you can see some of them have actually graduated from the school in Mahabodhi and then eventually moved on to places like Bangalore, Delhi, Chandika in order to study. And this is the first, the batch of girls who are following behind the Bante. They all graduated, and some of them are doctors, dentists. Two or three of them are teachers, and one or two have come back to actually help out in Mahabodhi as officers or executive officers. This is a boys' hostel. is also another good complex, and you notice that they are all provided with solar panels, which provide the power as well as also the hot water system. And at the same time, not only do you sponsor lay boys or girls, you can also sponsor the nuns, right? And this is a nunnery where the little nuns will then be educated. At the same time, they can also choose to continue to be nuns, or they can actually go out to work with their secular education. There is also another monastery. We call it the Mahabodhi Jetavana Monastery. And the children there are educated both in the secular as well as in the monastic. So they have a good chance to learn both. And then the decision is theirs later on in their life. As Dr. Victor mentioned, that there is actually a age home. And the happiest people actually on the campus is actually the elderly. They was very grateful to the Bante for bringing them in, because otherwise in Ladakh, most of the parents or grandparents, they are actually left roaming around, and they have actually been not well taken care of. And this is a place where they could grow old gracefully, and they are all very happy. And because they are in the midst of little children, they actually had a very what they call balanced life. And the other one, I think Dr. Victor didn't mention, was actually a school for the blind, for the visually impaired. And this school was started with a few children. Some of them actually graduated, right? And they have gone, because of their braille, they are able to actually serve in administrative posts. And one of them became a teacher. So this is the school, and it's a residential school. You have education. You also have buses, and I think Dr. Victor has also mentioned that some of these buses are sponsored by Malaysians, and they are fetched from the village around the school, and they are brought to the school itself. And most of the students actually excel very well. They did very well in the education system in India itself. This is a Mahabodhi branch school in Timeskan, right? And most of the children actually in this school, especially the branch school, they are sponsored. In Leh, a certain percentage of it is actually paid for by their parents. So with that, thank you very much. And if you are keen, feel free to contact me, and then we will then be able to share you more information. Thank you.